Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Talks. My name is Kim Riley, and I am the founder of the Transition Academy Special Needs College and Career Planning Center. And I am excited to bring you a great show that's inspirational, especially for the times that we're in. And it is definitely a treat for the class of 2020, who we are all pulling for. So as we get started, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit more about Tuesday Talks and how our show works. Right when the pandemic hit, we decided that we as a disability community needed to come together and connect. And so we had just a virtual check-in on March the 23rd. And it was schools, the school district, it was our charter schools. We even had some friends from UMKC Propel. We had case managers with the state. We also had Children's Mercy, some of our friends in the health community, and the overwhelming sentiment was we wanted to come together and lean on one another and learn from one another during COVID. And so on March the 31st, we started Tuesday Talks, and we have a 10 a.m. session and a 6 p.m. session. And we have a pretty simple agenda that we follow each week. We devote the first half of the show to a presentation, and then the second half to resource sharing. And sometimes the presentation and the Q&A go over, and that's okay because it's all about whatever we need and whatever we want to hear about. So I am going to, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our rock star, Johnny Gordon. Johnny is a former Kansas City Public Schools student who left us in Kansas City because he was too fancy. He left us after middle school because his mom followed her heart and moved to Virginia to get married. And then Johnny finished up high school in Virginia, and he just graduated from Old Dominion University. And so I am going to, yes, let's give it up for Johnny. And I feel like Johnny is my nephew because me and his mom grew up together, and his grandma made my prom dress, and his sister is my sister, his auntie is my sister. So so I'm really beaming with proud auntie pride right now. Johnny, can you just introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of follow the format that we followed this morning, if that's okay with you.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, most of you already know me, but like she said, my name is Johnny Gordon. Recent graduate from Old Dominion University in Virginia Beach. Well, Norfolk technically, but yeah. Now I officially have a bachelor's in studio art, and I'm planning on using that hopefully to become an art teacher, either for high school collegiate.
Okay. Now, Johnny, you have an unusual story. You were diagnosed with Asperger syndrome late in life. So can you tell us more about how it all went down and what that was like?
Right. So yeah, usually a lot of Black youth tend to get, or just a lot of youth in general tend to get diagnosed at a very young age. Autism usually spikes around like adolescence, usually like 3 to 5 years old or so. As for me, I was diagnosed when I was 18, so around my senior year of high school, like right about the time I graduated. Essentially, what happened is that my mom was just getting in contact with like a couple of work friends, and with just after having talks about just children talks that most parents do, they came to realize there were certain similarities between me and their children. Essentially, just in the way we acted, the way we conversed, socialized, and our own certain just our own mental fortitude in a lot of certain areas. Came to my mom suggested that I would be assessed eventually. And for me personally, that was a whole different experience. Essentially, she sat me down and gave me, an article just to read about the experience between two autistic people that eventually became a couple. Um, as time went by, I just read it down, read the entire thing. It was a very interesting story. Me personally, though, I was trying to figure out where this related to my experience or my life immediately. And it wasn't until she told me that I may have been, diagnosed with autism that kind of hit me in that way. It wasn't necessarily anything to be afraid of or angry about, but it was definitely something that came as a shock. But the more and more we thought about it and just look back in life, it became very clear in terms of perspective. Just like how much of this stuff made sense. So essentially, just like it pretty much made sense for me to have autism all my life, given like the way I've like thought, the way I've acted in the past, and even now. But it's just nice and refreshing to actually have that sort of way of understanding that what I am is still normal. What I do is still normal. It's just good to have explanation of like what's going on with because of that.
Mhm. Okay. So did you feel sad, or did you kind of rethink what your life was going to be or what your future was going to be like?
I did definitely have identity crisis during the summer after I graduated, but it wasn't anything in terms of sadness. It was just trying to figure out, or trying to understand, that having autism wasn't necessarily, a crutch or anything in my development. There's definitely things to understand, like in the past, just, I may have done this because of autism, and that I may be doing certain things because of autism itself, in terms of just like my lack of social skills, or just the way I explain things, or my sort of not maybe like somewhat obsession to research things immediately and thoroughly. Um, but they're not necessarily bad qualities to have. There are other things to work around, or just things to adapt to. And coming to realize that, I came to realize that, like, while just like anything with anyone's identity, it's more of a part of me that is a controlling part of me. I'm just a person with autism, and that's the fact. It's not that, oh, he's autistic. Like, yeah, sure, but just I have that. Let's just move on, and it's okay to have that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And so so much is going on now with the class of 2020. I think we're all of our hearts are like aching for them. And I even look at your senior year as really, it was kind of a topsy-turvy year, because
Yeah,
that was the year you found out that you had Asperger's.
yeah. It did definitely. It didn't necessarily take a toll, but it definitely changed just how I assumed things were gonna go, I guess, for my college years. Since it just affecting, it didn't necessarily affect how I learned anything, but it did necessarily affect, you know, being more conscious or aware of my actions when getting into college, such socializing with people there and on campus, getting in the clubs, making a life for myself that was more independent, and understanding like, how autism affects that. Um, it's definitely been a transformative and very introspective part of my life now. Um, but more so, it comes with a sense of pride to know I was able to get through this.
Mhm. Now, will you share with us, going into, as you were kind of navigating your college search process, how did you decide that you needed to go to Old Dominion?
Um, so with Old Dominion, there was both a matter of, I would definitely say there was a matter of both, introspection on that end, feeling that there was a need to branch myself out, and I will admit also stubbornness with my parents and just like our own decision. Um,
Look at stepdad is over here shaking his head. Rick, it actually turned out okay, okay?
yeah. Because initially, my parents, especially my mom, wanted me to go to HBCU. So VSU was definitely like or at least it was presumed to be a short shot for me to get to, like, go straight in, because grades never been an issue for me. Getting to know people never really been an issue for me in that sort of forefront. And being as I grew up in like an African centered school, like of course that would just been a straight shot. but it was definitely a shock to her. um, just me saying no in that regard. Um, Getting there during those tours, my mind was somewhat already made on a couple of things before prior to that, especially in terms of like, VCU with our art program or, ODU with their teaching program. Um, but it was when I arrived at the issue itself that kind of set in motion that just how much the system kind of affected my decision. Um, Not to disparage the issue, they were very kind people up there. They only wanted the best for like a lot of students and stuff. And they are very welcoming in that, just the HBCU fashion, just going out with like, bands, step teams, just showing you, like, just showing out, just complete like what they stand for, what the pride they represent. But I've never been good with large crowds or that sort of extrovert energy.
Okay.
So just getting there kind of overloaded my senses just when they brought that all out, and that kind of drove me away in a bit. Among all things, it may have just been like our program itself was just it's really underfunded, but we only learned that later. They're very nice people, like I said, but just like with that sort of energy, I just couldn't necessarily bring that there with them and meet them on that sort of wavelength. So it didn't really necessarily work out. In terms of ODU's curriculum and stuff, the reason I chose that was more or less just because I was very much inspired by one of my past teachers in high school. She was a huge guiding force in like how I conducted my art, how I built my own foundation in visual arts. And seeing as she actually was an alumni from ODU and got her teaching degree there, I thought, that would be a great place for me. Considering like, okay, if they can make you, they can definitely, produce something better out of me in that regard. So, just like that road just kind of felt, straightforward for me anyway.
Okay. Now, can you, as you were giving praise to your high school teacher, can you also share with us, because Rick, I'm still, I'm warming up to you, but I'm still kind of salty that you took my sis and my nephew from us to Virginia. I'm trying to move on, but it's hard, So Johnny, can you share also the impact of your African-centered preparatory experience, how that prepared you for your high school experience in Virginia?
Oh, definitely. Growing up, I've pretty much African centered schooling has pretty much been my entire life in different types of facets. Going to JS Chick, then later on going to ACC. Generally, my entire experience has definitely just been just Black people learning Black history, understanding geography of Africa, just knowing, understanding how the African American community has prospered, struggled, and have they gone for the future. And with that came a great source of pride, not only in myself but for my own people as well. Um, it definitely helped create a standard of what I expect most schools or most institutions to have in terms of like if you're advertising this sort of thing, then you should definitely have that sort of thing. If I don't see that sort of facet, there's no way I can feel pride in what I'm doing here, or can I actually trust you to actually keep your word and showing that sort of quality, like you said. With that came a strong sense of community and strong sense of loyalty that I've kind of just shown with other people, especially moving down here to Virginia. And there's definitely been culture shock in terms of just being, I guess, getting a more broader perspective of different cultures in my own high school in Salem. Just because it's not Black people anymore, it's not white, Filipino, other races as well. And then bringing that here, it wasn't necessarily hard, but it was definitely, I can definitely say there was a bit of homesickness into it because it wasn't the same necessarily.
Yeah.
But I was able to still find my own community of people like me that still felt that same pride and kind of move on through with that. And honestly, just being able to still keep that sense of community has really helped me be where I am.
Now, Johnny, now that you are a college graduate, I want to take you back a little bit when you were just a measly freshman. Seemed like a million years ago, right?
Oddly, it was a little bit.
See, okay. He went in a boy and now he's a man. Can you share with us what it was like transfer just going from high school to college, how you were able to adjust?
I will definitely say the first 2 weeks, I suppose, like probably the first month was probably the roughest for me. Um, on one hand, I was very excited to be on my own. And a lot of facets at the very least have a sort of sense of independence in being able to like, make my own decisions, my own schedule, get through the day, just you know get out there and just do what I need to do. Um, and on an academic standpoint, that was pretty doable. From a social standpoint, that was probably the hardest 2 weeks of my life. Only because there wasn't necessarily a roadmap, um, for me anyway, of just getting through that. I mean, granted, you always have those like weeks where freshmen come in and they invite you to go visit a bunch of clubs in the college, and get to know all your roommates and stuff, and even get to know like the entire campus abroad. But just even with that, because it was just so high energy, and just again that sensory overload, it just didn't help a lot. So again, there were just nights that I would either walk home or walk back to the dorms, just with my headbuds in and or earbuds in, and then just completely ignore everything and just kind of be to myself. It wasn't until like a couple weeks later, just with hanging out with a small group of people in my own dorm, on like on one fateful night, or just us watching TV together, that kind of just started sparking off. And with that, um, my autism actually came in handy just with certain like research I've done on certain topics, especially just with what we were watching, and just relaying all those facts like as if I was actually just teaching a class, which is the funniest thing I've ever actually had to think about it. It really built a connection between us, and I'm happy to say like I still have connections today of just those people I've met in like my freshman year. Being able to talk to them in like day in day out, getting to know where they're at, talk, either through social media or even like face to face still. Um, and I've been definitely grateful for that. Um, in more of the academic standpoint, the roughest part, I guess, was just coming to accept that there were times I actually needed help. I've never really been one to say that I need help either as a sense of like, excessive pride, or just like, I feel like I should know this. Therefore, I should be able to get this done by myself. Um, it wasn't until, like the first year, first semester of it, that I came to understand that, okay, maybe I do need help with this, or at very least, not if not the academics, but just the stress of it all. Because getting used to like dealing with like a 15-hour class set per semester can be a rush resistance for anybody,
Right.
especially if you have like generalized anxiety disorder and a like, sort of like fast-paced environment. So I had to kind of just swallow my pride for a minute and just go down to like the certain centers that we have in colleges. For ODU, Student Success Center, just to have them give me accommodations for my autism. And honestly, that was probably the best thing for me in hindsight. Just finding that sort of community of qualified specialists that are there not only to help you but want to help you get through those academic struggles, because they just want to see you pass at the end of the day, and that really comforted me a lot, honestly.
Now, Johnny, what is it like? Autism, Asperger's it's an invisible disability. People can't look at you,
Mhm.
and certainly cannot have a conversation with you and tell that you are different.
Right.
How do you advocate for yourself when people cannot tell that you have a disability?
I can. I'll definitely say it's not an always easy thing to do, just because people have different temperaments on the whole issue. From the more just from the more ignorant base in terms of like you just definitely didn't know it, to the more offensive. Um, and I will admit sometimes it can be hard to be composed in that sort of area. But honestly, just explain to them, that there's so many different facets to autism. Um, definitely helps, because just like seeing me with autism, if you meet, like I said before, if you meet one person with autism, you meet one person with autism. There's no way that's the same because it runs on a spectrum. So where I am completely like a verbal person, it can talk to like anyone like plainly, without probably like without most just some hesitation or just tripping over my words. There are those that are either nonverbal, those are more shyer than others, those who can't really speak for themselves necessarily. And it's just by guiding them through that and just explaining them through like small tidbits, and or it's really, or if they want like a more regular conversation, is where I get that sort of chance, just explain the whole just the whole universe that or environment that we live in. um I try to explain that it's not like a condition that impairs you for life. It's definitely not something that completely blocks you off from the world. Like you said, like it's definitely like a sort of invisible disability. Like you don't see me in a wheelchair, you don't see me as a blind person, you don't see me using sign language or anything like that. But it's definitely something that affects us to a certain degree, in which like it can most at very least affect how we receive information or how we socialize. And at the end of the day, it's just you can still talk to us as you would talk to anyone else. If anything, it just requires more patience, and that's the only thing. If anything in the conversation, I just ask for is just patience in that, and just understanding. That it may take me longer to understand where you're going for, or because with this sort of thing, I might not get everything that you say. I might take things too literally. If you make certain jokes and stuff, but that's an okay thing. Like you don't just see me as this sort of weak link. Just talk to me as you would anyone else with that sort of respect, and we can definitely get through that.
Great. So Johnny, I want to switch gears a little bit. I know that you are an amazing artist, and so I want to give you time to get some of your artwork and show it to us and kind of explain like your inspiration for it. And then
Sure.
I'm going to put Rick in the hot seat, and we're going to hear Rick's perspective of parenting. You and hearing about the diagnosis and how life has been.
Okay.
So, hello, Rick.
Hey, how are you?
Did the dog start barking as soon as I turned it over to you?
As soon as you turned it over.
That's how it works, right?
Can you hold on 1 second? 1 second.
Okay.
All right. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Hush, get up.
This is like literally every Zoom conference call I'm on, like the pets, the little kids will come up and like want to have like a full conversation about whatever. So
Okay, sorry about that. So,
you're fine. You're fine.
So let's recap. Now, what exactly would you like me to speak to?
Okay, well, I wanted to speak to when you found out that Johnny had Asperger's. What was your reaction?
Well, being that no one in my personal family at that time had been diagnosed with Asperger's or autism, it was something for me to research and kind of get a feel for. Didn't know much about it. What I know in the Black community is that any time that there is any type of mental illness, you are labeled, okay? And that was my concern, is that he would be labeled and then he would be shunned because he had a mental illness. Okay, there's a lot of things in the Black community you can be, but quote unquote crazy is not one. Okay, that is not what people, they don't want to participate, they don't want to be around because they have that thought in their head that this is the label they've given you. So I had to do some research because I didn't really know much about it. Okay, I've been in healthcare, I've been in nursing almost 30 years. Okay, but that has never been my forte. It's not my wheelhouse. So I had to do some research for myself so that I could learn how to help him help himself. Because at the end of the day, as a parent, you are here to prepare your children for the day that you're no longer here, and they have to be able to sustain and move forward. So our goal has always been to help him get to that point that he can be self-sufficient.
Okay. And what was it like parenting him, newly diagnosed, and off to college, living on campus? How did you adjust your parenting for that stage of
Well,
life?
you don't turn your cell phone off for one thing. You can't turn your cell phone off. And whenever he calls, you have to answer, regardless of what you're doing, what's going on. You got to answer because you don't know if he's having a moment, if he's doing okay. He just wants to speak to you about something that's going on. Because one thing with Johnny is that it is an immediate response. He needs immediate interaction, or it can kind of go off the rails a little bit. Okay, so you have to be available to answer those questions and kind of give him that guidance when necessary. When he went off to school, the first year living in the dorm, we first of all didn't realize that the little girls and the little boys live right next to each other in the dorm now. You know, I mean, there's
Yeah.
2 girls bathroom, 2 boys bathroom, 2 girls. So I'm like, where are these little girls going? You know, on this floor. So that was something that I had to get used to. But the first semester was tough on all of us. I think it was tough on him because of his, he was no longer familiar with his surroundings. His schedule was no longer his schedule. He had to make up his own schedule, which we had to kind of help him with that through high school. So there was a lot of things he had to do on his own, which was a bit of a struggle because Johnny will tell you he has an issue with time management. He always has. So making sure that he gets to class on time, we got to call and make sure he's up. And you know, did you get breakfast? Did you do these things? Um, just trying to make sure that we are still present, but we're not right there holding his hand. You know, kind of getting
Okay.
him prepared for that day that he needs to make these decisions on his own.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rick. I think I may have possibly forgiven you after that, outstanding like dad advocacy moment. And we're gonna now turn it over to Johnny. Like, yeah, I know. I need to move on.
Yeah, you need to move on.
Because how long have you all been married?
We've been married since 14, but we've been together since nine,
Yes,
right
yes,
around 9 or 10. So it's
yeah.
8 or 9 actually, because they moved here in 10.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a few days now. So I need you to just get over it.
Okay. I'm over it, Rick. Okay. I'm
Okay,
officially over
we'll find out shortly.
it. Okay. Thank you. Johnny, are you ready to show us some of your artwork?
Just about, yeah.
Okay.
um,
So because I am that ridiculous auntie who loves to like embarrass her nieces and nephews, um, hopefully Johnny will. One of the things that Johnny's mom shared this morning was that Johnny stays booed up. You know, out of all of his challenges, he has always kept a girlfriend. So hey, there have been some social challenges. That has not been one.
oh my
There,
God.
Rick says he agrees. There have been some need for some academic support. Okay, so he has that area covered. And now he's going to show us his second passion, which is his arts. Johnny, you got a Bachelor of Arts. Was it visual arts?
Yeah, it's as a bachelor in studio art.
Bachelor in Studio Art. So he's going to show us a glimpse into his artwork and kind of give us a little insight into why he
Oh,
created.
that's hard to see.
Yeah. Let's see.
Didn't have a computer. Sorry about that. So a lot of, let me see if I can use my phone then. Wait 1 second. Wait one. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Let's see. All right, that's better. All right. I'll just go ahead and drop this down. So essentially, a lot of my art. Ooh, that's excellent. So a lot of my art focuses in terms of just like the Black identity. Essentially focusing on a lot of different facets from actual autism itself, as well as youth, sexuality, just a lot of different facets that go on, especially in terms of I would say young adult life. These are some of my more recent images I made during my time at review. This is my most recent bigger one. Essentially just focusing in terms of just masculinity versus femininity. It was made during one of my finals. In terms of mentality, I would definitely say this is like one of my favorite ones right here. This was a screen print that I made through lithograph. So usually using like hard stone and various ink. This was actually focused on one of the good dear friends of mine as they deal with BPD, bipolar, or no, borderline personality disorder. Oh, give me 1 second. Oh, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, is there still too much feedback? Ooh, sorry about that. Give me 1 second. All right, is that better?
That is much better, yes.
Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, this one, like I said before, it's lithograph. And essentially, this one was probably one of my more favorite ones just because it was, again, supposed to show that sort of invisible disability sort of thing we were talking about earlier. Essentially, that we can still function even if we are, dealing with certain things. Just my friend, they were dealing with, borderline personality disorder. And for them, they said that essentially that in a way it's very consuming in a way. With the insipid moods that they or behavior that they can deal with, it can lead to them, kind of just suffocating or just kind of crawling back at them like on the back. But nonetheless, they still persevere.
Great.
I've also focused on my own in terms of like autism and whatnot. Essentially, just find different ways to just show off. Ooh, that's hard to use as a letter. Show off just how it feels or how it can look. Essentially, this was supposed to be just a more direct sort of textbook definition of just like what it looks like to have autism. I didn't mean for it to be as stark as it looks, but there are definitely days where it just feels like, I can feel disconnected from the world in a way. This doesn't necessarily mean this is what happens all the time, but there are bad days. I can definitely say, the fact that it's not always pretty, but nonetheless, we still function. We still look around. We still communicate. And like I said, just patience is always key. In terms of a lot of my art, I do tend to also focus a lot on self-portraits, just because I feel that self-expression is probably the best way to get your point across. Also, just out of convenience, I'm probably the best model I have because I'm the only reliable one. So through a lot of different practices, I have essentially learned different ways just to like show myself off, whether it's through computer graphics, Photoshop, painting, illustration, all of that. I would say definitely painting and illustration is definitely one of my better abilities. This is just an abstract portrait that we made I made like months ago. Essentially just going based on the more basic shapes, just construct a face and show myself like essentially this would have been right here in my hair. You can kind of see a sort of simplified face right here with the teeth. Try to make it like a hand right there, just with the clothes ruffling, stuff like that. I wish I had the original reference photo, but yeah. And
oh, I'm sorry, Johnny. Quick question.
Yeah.
Can you share how your art has changed, like from before you were diagnosed to since you've been diagnosed?
I would say that
it's definitely become more focused. In terms of prior to autism, I did want to focus on the Black experience, but I never felt I had a certain, I guess, I wouldn't say edge per se, but a certain specific focus in mind on how I want to show that, whether it be a negative or positive light.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to focus on both facets of just, showing, the suffering and also prosperity. Um, but upon learning about the autism, I realized just how much stuff was never really brought into the mainstream or just represented well. I mean, if you look at like TV media, whatnot, you still see it's so hard to actually find the sort of variables with African Americans in terms of like actors, actresses, and just the roles they play. We definitely have hit a point where we definitely focus on more positive careers and more nuance of the mental like the nuance of mental representation. And I feel that's an important role to focus on because, like Mr. Rick said, like there's definitely a stigma of mental health within the Black community, in which if you have something or it's different, people look at you and see you as someone that's insane, crazy, without a lot of it's more infantilized. Instead of through a more within my art, and just also focusing on not just me but also others who have different disabilities, both mentally and physically.
Great. Okay. I'm going to open it up for questions. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Does anyone have questions for Johnny?
I got a question for Johnny. So
How are you?
good, how are you? My question is for you, Johnny, is who impacted you when you were diagnosed?
I would definitely say I think the most impactful person who's impacted me the most, other than my mother, is definitely the teachers I've had along the way. I've had a lot of different mentors growing up. Just going through some of what Changa and kind of started teaching in my middle school, and just essentially they've been sort of driving force in my career choice, and understanding just how a lot of people growing up want to feel in terms of just respect and information. It's never easy to find a role model in a lot of areas, I would say. But if you just find that one good person, certain light in your own troubles, I do feel like that goes a long way. And I hopefully want to be like that to somebody when I finally get into my teaching career. I feel that teachers definitely help build bridges that some can't find at home or somewhere else. And I would just love to help at least one person with that.
Rebecca is a student at UMKC in the Propel program, and she has done so well. Rebecca not only has done well in the classroom, but she has joined a sorority, and the sorority invited her to live in the sorority house next year. So she is a force to be reckoned with, and we are so proud of you, Rebecca, and we are so happy that you could join us tonight. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I had a question.
Sure.
Johnny, I was wanting to find out. I'm a teacher, of high school and transition as well as post-secondary.
Mhm.
Now, when you went to college, did you seek out like a support group of others that may identify the same as you, or did you just want to fit in the best way you could? What would you advise others?
I would say definitely look at as many communities as you can. Um, in terms of my own experience, I definitely saw communities. While I was able to find an actual autism community within my own college experience, uh, find just your own group of like personal friends to help you through those areas. I would definitely say find a support group community because those can definitely go a long way. Like I've said before in earlier parts that just I was able to get through where I am today just because of those sort of type bonds community, and I feel like that follows through even with that specific perspective.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hey Kim, can I say something? Can you hear me? Hello?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Absolutely. Please, please talk with us, Dr. Bedell.
Yeah, I just wanted to just say, hey, this was very inspiring, very inspirational. I wanted to log in tonight just to get an opportunity to hear from you, Johnny. And I don't know if you have a job yet. I'm the superintendent of the Kansas City Public School District. You're in Virginia or you're in that area still. I know a number of people that are either superintendents that I've worked with or are in executive level positions supervising schools. And so Fairfax, Petersburg, Virginia Beach, Hampton, in that area. So if you're looking for a job and you need some support, Kim, you can work to try to, get me connected with this young man. People are looking for art teachers, and you may already have a job, but I'm very impressed with what I heard and learned tonight, and just wanted to congratulate you on the job well done, and all of your parents and people who supported you through this journey.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
Wow. Let's give Dr. Bedell a hand. That is, woo, woo, woo. Thank you so much. Well, Johnny, how you feeling?
Really good, honestly. No, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak my piece, and definitely just talk to a lot of individuals that are, I didn't understand before but understand now, or just want to hear my share. That's really nice and refreshing, honestly.
Oh, good. Now, Johnny, can you, we have a lot of students from UMKC's Propel program. The Propel program is for students with intellectual developmental disabilities. It's to make the college dream possible for them. And we have several of those students and their parents on this call. Can you share some words of encouragement or inspiration on them as they travel their college journey, as well as other students who are looking to go to college and who may not be sure that they have what it takes to make it?
Gotcha. If anything, I would definitely say that despite everything that can go on or that's going on, it's definitely possible. Um, I will. I'll preface this by saying that there are days that'll be good. There are days that will definitely be bad. I've had my share of panic attacks, my share of just feeling out of place with a lot of people. But when you find that group that definitely understands who you are, what you've been through, and just what you have, it goes a long way without saying. Having a strong support group, patience, and understanding of what what goes on people with autism definitely goes a long way to help them grow, to help them understand the world around them. And I've had that for years, God willing. And it doesn't, even if you feel like it's too late, it's never too late. Just, have to sit down and just show that sort of other solidarity, or just, ask them any way you can accommodate. Because all we pretty much ask is, just have the patience with us, because even if we're not getting there as fast as others, we definitely get there. And we walk like the rest.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Johnny. Let's give him a round of applause. I just thank you for just your journey, but I also thank you for being authentic. So many people hide their disability, and you're like, hey, this is a part of who I am, and deal with it. It hasn't stopped you from dreaming or achieving. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Of course,
Thank you, Rick, for being that awesome dad and for pushing my nephew further and higher, and for loving my sis, So thank you so much. And I promise you, I have moved on. I'm over it, okay? We are officially family. I want to switch gears just a little bit. Every week on Tuesday Talks, we also share a resource list. And this week, I want to make sure that we are aware that the state of Missouri recently passed a law that for those of us who have company insurance plans, if you have insurance plans through your company, there is unlimited speech therapies that are covered. So whether it's speech, physical, or occupational therapy, they are covered under this new law. And so for parents who want to make sure that that coverage is a part of their private insurance plan, on the resource list, I'm going to include a link, and it has, it gives you basically some talking points, so that when you go to your HR or your benefits department, you can make sure that you're covered, and they can get you signed up for these much needed resources. I was told to put, it's politically correct to not say unlimited therapies, to say additional, but for our purposes in Tuesday Talks, it's unlimited. So just so that we know that. And then also a few weeks ago, I shared with us through our resource list that the state also offers free iPad loans for students who maybe need assistive communication devices. You can reach out and you can get an iPad loan to last you throughout this COVID period. Well, they have now followed up a little bit further, and there's now a COVID-19 tech scholarship up to $500 for technology. So on the resource list, it will spell out all the qualifications that if you need technology to increase your access to social networks, for leadership development, for self-advocacy. Then this scholarship, which is $500 per individual or $1,000 per family, is available. And so the link will be listed. The deadline is May the 30th, and I've gotten about 6 different messages. So this one is really, really hot. They want as many families and individuals to apply for this as possible. Does anyone else have resources that they'd like to share?
I do.
Okay, great. Well, on that note, thank you all for taking time out of your day to attend this session of Tuesday Talks. Thank you, Johnny, for just being your amazing self. And I'm sure we all are feeling encouraged and inspired. In spite of the times we're in, we know that hope is still possible, right? Thank you all so much, and you have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good night.